Please close your eyes.
No, really close them.
Picture the faces of Israel. What do you see?
Do you see Jewish faces and Arab faces, religious and secular, young and old? Are they Ethiopian and Russian and everything in between?
Have they seen tragedy and Arab faces, religious? Have they seen tragedy and also triumph? Are they Sabras, native to the land? Have they lived in Israel for generations? Are they recent immigrants diligently learning Hebrew at Ulpan?
Open your eyes. These and more are the faces of Israel. During this year's AJC Global Forum, you will have the chance to meet several of these faces and hear them tell their stories, starting right now with our first Faces of Israel segment.
My name is Belaynesh Zevadia. I was born in the Jewish village of Ambober, near Gondar in northern Ethiopia. I am the youngest of 8 children. All of my family members were Zionist activists. Jerusalem was our collective dream, but we took different routes to Israel. In 1984, when I was 17 years old, my parents decided that I should make Aliyah to Israel on my own, joining my brother David and my sister Hava, who had arrived earlier. But it would take 7 long years for my whole family to finally be reunited in Israel. My 2 married sisters, their husbands and their children, the youngest only a month old, took a very dangerous route to Israel. They walked for nearly a month to a refugee camp in Sudan run by the State of Israel and the American Jewish organizations. They had to wait in the camp for a year until they could make Aliyah. My elderly parents and remaining siblings stayed behind in Ethiopia. My father, Gete Zevadia, of blessed memory, was Kes HaKesim, the equivalent of the chief rabbi of Ethiopian Jews. When my father arrived in Israel, he was in a wheelchair and lived out of his remaining days in Beersheba. He died 3 years after final making it to Israel. My brother Yosef Zevadia, who is in here with us today, was a prisoner of Zion during Ethiopia's Marxist period. A teacher, he was taken to jail from his school because he was teaching Hebrew and Judaism. After enduring 3 years of abuse in a prison, he was set free. He still suffers from physical and pain trauma caused by his horrific experience. My first 5 years in Israel were very hard for me. Also, I was the youngest of 8 children. I constantly worried about my sisters and their little children who walked to Sudan, and about my elderly parents and other siblings who had remained behind in Ethiopia. It wasn't until Operation Salomon in 1991 that the last member of my family arrived in Israel. After making Aliyah, I went to Ulpan Etzion to learn Hebrew. After Ulpan, I worked at the Jewish Agency for Israel, assisting Ethiopian immigrants who came to Israel via Sudan during Operation Moses in 1984-1985, including my 2 sisters and their families. After a year at the Jewish Agency, I began to study at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Throughout my studies, I worked to support myself and help my family in Ethiopia. I took any available job, including as a cleaner and a security guard. My studies were also difficult due to the language barrier. I remember sitting in a lecture halls and taking notes in Amharic. Later in my dorm room, I was translating my notes into English and from English into Hebrew. Despite longing for my family and my concerns for their well-being in Ethiopia, I completed my studies in 3 years. After completing a BA and MA, I was accepted into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a cadet course, which prepares the next generation of diplomats to represent Israel. I was the first MFA, first Ethiopian cadet. After the courses, I was stationed abroad, first our consulate in Chicago, and then in Houston. Most recently, posting was Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, as an Israeli ambassador to Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Burundi. I had left Ethiopia as a teenager. I returned as a grown woman, an ambassador of the State of Israel. Combining my roles as a mother of three wonderful children with my fascinating work as an ambassador was a challenge. One documented in the Israeli television series, 6 Mothers, which closely followed the life of 6 very different women. And in 2014, I was honored to be chosen to light the torch devoted to Women's Time at the Israeli 66th Independence Day ceremony on Mount Herzl. Throughout it all, my incredible husband, Serkale Madgeh, who is also in the audience, gave me and our children endless love and support. Returning to Ethiopia as Israeli ambassador gave me a unique perspective. Seeing the young, barefoot girls in their torn clothing running freely around the village, any one of whom could have been me, remind me of the potential of any person to transform their life into a success story. That was my message when I returned to the country that I left almost 30 years earlier as a teenager. By making Aliyah, working very hard, working and striving to achieve, I was able to transform my life beyond anything I couldn't have imagined as a child. But I wasn't alone in the journey, and I would like to thank my family, the government, and the people of Israel, and the many American Jewish organizations, including AJC, who made this journey possible. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Israel. My name is Rivka Ravitz, and I'm the Israeli President's Chief of Staff. This might come as a surprise to some of you, but I'm also a mother to 11 kids. Standing here before you as a proud member of the Haredi sector, I believe that I look and think exactly as my grandmother did, and exactly as her grandmother and her great-grandmother did before. Haredi Jewry waves the banner of preserving authentic Jewish tradition as delivered to the Jewish nation collectively at Sinai. And the strength of this tradition, what we call the Masorah, that empowers our nation, keeps us alive, and has allowed us to preserve throughout over 3 millennia. Nations have come and gone, risen and fallen, but the Jewish people are eternal. As Chief of Staff to the Israeli President, I juggle an extraordinary career with a very busy family life. In a short period of time, I've met with former President Obama, President Trump, the Pope, Vladimir Putin, Angela Merkel, along with Mahmoud Abbas, Gal Gadot, and many others. On the personal level, I'm also a mother of 11, as I said, a proud grandmother, one of 10 siblings, and my husband is one of 12. So just imagine how many people we had to invite to our daughter's wedding. Between immediate families and first cousins alone, we topped 1,000 people. Despite the numerous demands of my job, never once was I forced to compromise on my religious values. Similarly, never once did my values diminish from my professional or ability to fulfill my job successfully and in the best way possible. On the contrary, every time I felt compelled to stand up for my values and beliefs, I was treated to respect and understanding, a great deal of respect and a great deal of understanding. I believe it's possible. I want to stress to all of you that Haredi Jews, and specifically Haredi women, are not confined, limited, or discriminated against by any means. We are happy and proud to bear the torch of Torah and Jewish tradition, and we feel privileged and gratified to be raising and cultivating the next generation, the future of our people, the next link in the golden chain of beautiful Jewish generations. Thank you and have a nice evening.